Good morning.
Listen, today is the start of early voting. We've been telling you about early voting for weeks and
Early
weeks
voting,
now.
early voting.
Early voting has started today. It's going to run until October 29th. So we're asking you to get out and vote early. Put your vote in the bank so that we can know where we are come November 5th. So the 2024 election season in New Orleans, well, in Louisiana, look at me talking about New Orleans. And Louisiana is entering the home stretch Friday as early voting begins across the state. While the outcomes of its 6 congressional races seem set, the neck-and-neck presidential election between Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump is expected to drive a huge turnout. Early voting in Louisiana is open to all state voters and will last from October 18th to October 29th, excluding Sunday, October 20th, and Sunday, October 28th. Polling locations are open from 8:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. So we need to talk about how to find your early voting location. There are more than 100 polling locations open for early voting in Louisiana, with at least one location open in each of the 64 parishes. Large jurisdictions will have multiple locations open. Baton Rouge and New Orleans, for instance, have 5. Lafayette has 3, and Shreveport has 2. The Secretary of State's office provides a full list of open early voting locations on its website. Remember, according to the SOS, that is the Secretary of State's office, Louisiana residents should bring a photo ID with them to the polls, and digital licenses on LA Wallet will be accepted. Those without a photo ID will be required to fill out a voter affidavit. In Louisiana, it is illegal to wear or pass out campaign imagery or literature, so leave the flyers, buttons, and campaign t-shirts at home. I mean, I probably shouldn't have to say this, but firearms are not allowed at polling locations,
Absolutely.
even with a concealed permit. Now let's get to the good stuff. What's on the ballot? Across the country, voters will mark their choice for the 47th President of the United States. Though Trump and Harris are the most well known, 9 other candidates will also appear on the ballot. All voters in Louisiana will have to weigh in on a constitutional amendment that, if passed, would dedicate the federal money Louisiana receives from offshore alternative energy production to the state's Coastal Protection and Restoration Fund, where it can only be used for projects that will safeguard the coastal area. There is also an open seat for Louisiana's Public Service Commission, which regulates utilities and in-state trucking that voters Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and Homer will weigh in on. Running for one of the 5 commissioners are State Senator Jean-Paul Couzon, he's a Republican out of Lafayette; Nick Laborde, a Democrat and human resources consultant from Baton Rouge; and former St. Tammany Parish State Senator Julie Quinn, a Republican who now practices law in Baton Rouge. They are seeking to replace retiring Commissioner Craig Green in the heavily Republican PSC district, and the race is likely to go to a runoff. There are also 7 congressional seats across the state, though 5 incumbents, Majority Leader Steve Scalise, he's a Republican out of Jefferson; United States Representative Troy Carter, Democrat from New Orleans; United States Republican Clay Higgins out of Lafayette; and United States Rep. Julie Letlow, a Republican. So they're expected to win re-election outright. That's not according to me, that is according to this article. The only competitive congressional race is for the newly created 6th congressional district that the legislature redrew in January to make majority black. Current U.S. Rep. Garrett Graves, a Republican out of Baton Rouge, opted not to run
Right.
for re-election. Louisiana can use GoVote portal to get more specifics on their individual ballot. And here's a closer look at what other local races will be on your ballot. In New Orleans, voters in the 1st Congressional District, which includes parts of Jefferson, Orleans, Plaquemines, St. Bernard, St. Charles, St. Tammany, and Tangible Hope parishes, will decide who represents them in the U.S. House. Those in the 2nd Congressional District, which includes parts of Jefferson, Orleans, St. Bernard, St. Charles, St. James, and St. John the Baptist parishes, will also elect their representative. On the parish level, residents in Orleans and Jefferson will see options for school board positions and other charter amendments. So, speaking of those school board races, because, for me, those are the most important. I believe. I listen, that's just me. So, we have a District 2 and a District 4 race for school board. The District 2 seat is an open seat vacated by Ethan Ashley. In the District 4 seat, we have an incumbent, Dr. Donaldo Batiste, and he's been challenged by Katrina Chantel Griffin for the District 2 seat. Donaldo Batiste, who is running for re-election for the 4th district, said he wants to finish the work that the board started when it directed New Orleans Public School Superintendent Avis Williams to open the Leah Chase School. He says, instead of inviting new charters to come, we're directing the superintendent to bring back district-run schools. He said that at a recent candidate forums. So 2 candidates are backed by national pro-charter organizations, while other candidates say that they want the district to take over more struggling charter schools, turning the races for the 2 contested board seats into proxy battles for charter versus traditional governance. In the District 2 race, which is the open seat, we have Gabriella Biro, Dr. Eric Jones, and Chan Tucker. All are vying for the 2nd district seat, which represents Gentilly, New Orleans East, and the Upper Ninth Ward. It is currently held by board member Ethan Ashley, who is not seeking re-election. Jones began his career as a teacher in New Orleans and had stints as a band director before spending nearly 2 decades as a director at Teach for America, recruiting teachers and training them in cultural competency. Jones said he supports successful charter schools but will push the district to take over struggling schools. He said he hoped district-run schools will initiate a return of neighborhood schools, drawing mostly students from the nearby neighborhood. Gabriella Biro is a professional hairdresser with a background in community organizing. Says she was inspired to run after hearing client stories about flaws in the education system and seeing recent conservative state legislation, including a bill requiring public schools to post the 10 Commandments. And Chan Tucker is an Entergy executive who has amassed thousands more in donations than any other school board candidate. If elected, he said he will focus on recruiting quality teachers to the district, improving parents' understanding of the enrollment system, and enabling charter schools to share best practices and to collaborate more closely. And I don't want to leave out the challenger for the District 4 seat. Katrina Chantel Griffin works as an accountant and does volunteer work for a plethora of community groups, including as a certified police mediator and education fundraiser. Griffin, whose 2 children graduated from New Orleans Public Schools, says she will focus on teacher retention, data transparency, and truancy. So what do you think about the District 2 and District 4 contenders?
I think that as you may remember, and we've talked about this a lot, not just last week, but this week also, and we'll continue to talk about it throughout the election day. I think it's extremely critical. Probably one of, if not the most important issue on the ballot is the school board election, because that affects the day-to-day operations of the city of New Orleans and most families here in the city of New Orleans. Every morning this week when I come here early in the morning, when I see the kids here, I think about this election and think about what's in play. I live in New Orleans East, so as a result, I'll be electing a new person to represent New Orleans East in my area. And as I mentioned earlier, I have 2 school-age children who both one who's in 9th grade and one who is in 5th grade, who fall under the auspices of the Orleans Parish school system. And so this piece is extremely important. I'm a chronic voter. I vote all the time. So I usually try and study the individuals long before I go and cast a vote for them. And so when I take a look at them, I look to see where I think the city is doing well, where I look to see where our school system has done well, but also where I think there are some things that we need to do a whole lot better. And the school system falls into that category that I think we need to do a whole lot better. So I'm looking at the candidates to see where we are with that. I followed the school system for the last 20 years or so, if not more, when we went on to this entire all charter network to see exactly where we are with that. I have many friends that I either taught back at Southern University at New Orleans, some classmates from McDonald 35 who happen to be in the school system, who are teachers, who are administrators, who are principals. And so I try to get as much information as I can as to what they're saying, being the people on the ground, the boots on the ground, and the educators who really work extremely hard to educate our children. And what I hear on a regular basis is that there are some issues that need to be resolved, and them being resolved has a lot to do with who we send to serve as our school board members. The two candidates that are running in my particular district, I'm looking at their resumes. I'm looking to see what they've done. I'm looking at their past performance. I look to see what they say they're going to do. What I've said before, and I will continue to say it, one way that you can determine what someone is going to do once they get in office is by determining what they have done while they were out of office. You don't have to be elected to make a difference. You don't have to be elected to do things that are going to help the city of New Orleans. And in this instance, our children that are going to be educated by our educators. So we're looking at that extremely hard to see what's going on with that. And I would love it. I know we've had at least one of the candidates to call in during this particular week to tell us a little bit about himself. I would love to have the other candidate to come in.
We've had two candidates, one from each
Oh, that's
district.
in my district that I'm speaking
Yeah.
of. So in New Orleans East, there are two candidates. Only one of the candidates has called in. So I would love to get the other candidate to come in so we can get a chance to hear a little bit more about what's going on, give individuals the opportunity to ask questions, because the vast majority of people that's going to vote isn't going to meet either one of the candidates. That's the case across the board in every election. So I think it's important to do that. Get your voice heard. Let's see exactly what's going on and see who can best represent the best interests of our children.
So the District 4 seat represents Algiers and parts of the Marigny, Bywater, and the French Quarter. The article also says, like Tucker, the challenger for the District 4 seat is also endorsed by pro-charter group Democrats for Education. So if you are not familiar with the candidates themselves, you could actually go and look up the people who are backing them with their money. You can look it up. So I heard you mention something about you're looking at their resumes. How important is a resume in terms of people offering themselves up for service? This isn't a an opportunity to actually be our superintendent, where I think a resume might definitely be in the conversation. But how important is a resume when you're talking, offering yourself up for community service? Because I mean, Chan Tucker has a resume, but what does that have to do with education?
Well,
So how important is a resume?
I'll tell you what it has to do with it. I've run a couple of different times. I've won most of the time, and I came up short one time. And what I've always done since I've been a voter is always when I look at a resume, all of resume to me simply is it tells me what your preparation is. It tells me what education you may have or may not have. It tells me what you've been involved in. That starts the conversation for me to see exactly what's going on with you. It doesn't end it, but it starts it.
No, I agree, because I was saying the flyer that came to my family's home had a lot of words on it, but it didn't tell me much in the way of a platform. It didn't tell me much in the way of what your contributions to education have been prior to you deciding to want to run for a seat that actually will govern policy on a local level, you know, for children. I think it's you know, I'm always going to be of the mindset that educators ought to be in education decision making seats, you know. So I listen, I know what the resume means, but people who are listening may not understand. I've even heard that at some forums that it's even on one of the flyers that your academics or your credentials don't necessarily matter. And I think people who say that are people who lack those credentials, because if you're going to tell me somebody that holds a terminal degree in the field where the seat correlates to that degree and that degree doesn't matter, something is off there.
Correct.
So for me, I think, you know, saying a resume doesn't matter or your credentials don't matter or your expertise in the area doesn't matter speaks volumes to what you think about the seat that you're trying to hold. Because I don't know about you, if somebody sits on the medical board, I would like for them
Be a doctor,
to
absolutely.
to have some medical
Gotcha,
expertise. You know what
gotcha,
I mean?
gotcha.
If somebody is sitting on an education policy making board, I would hope that they at least understand education on some level.
Well, and to go one step further, I think for those candidates, I mean, we have individuals who decide the day of qualifying in it, hey, I'm going to run for this seat, when what simply means that those folks really haven't prepared themselves or made a knee-jerk decision to actually run. For me, serious candidates are those who prepare themselves sometime weeks, sometime months, sometime years ahead of time because they're serious about the seat that they're actually seeking. I think that we have a caller. You want to jump in?
Nah, I don't. Lionel, I want you to hold on because we're
Okay.
going to go to break, and I do not want you to rush your thought, and we do want to be able to answer your question succinctly. So, if you can hold on for us, and if you want to join this conversation, if you are a candidate running and you want to call in and talk to us about your platform, listen. The people want to hear from you, and so if you want to do that, the number here is 504-582-9422. We're going to go to break, but when we come back, we will have more conversation about what's on your ballot. We're going to talk more about the local election with the District 2 and District 4 races. We're going to talk more about the congressional seat that is also up for reelection. We're going to talk about the presidential race. We are 18 days away from November 5th, but we are starting early voting today in this city. And so I want to make certain that everybody knows that the Treme Community Center at 900 North Village Street is a voting space for early voting. There's parking available in the rear lot on St. Philip Street. So if you want to get out and vote early, go over to the Treme Center. Stay with us after the break. This is WBOK 1230 AM.
What New Orleans is talking about?
Hey everybody, it's Graylin Bryant Banks.
And Kimber White Dupree.
From the front porch, y'all. You know how we do every Monday. It's Moving Monday.
And Tuesday is Trivia Tuesday.
And y'all know we have nothing but bad cheering coming through here on Wednesday.
But stick with us. On Thursday, we travel.
That's right. And Friday's Free Your Mind Friday, so get your brass up.
Something on your mind? Want to get it off your chest?
Holla at your people. WBOK 1230 AM, the station you listen to
all day long.
I'm Daryl Forges with WDSU News, and here's your headlines. Happening today, early voting for the upcoming November 5th presidential election begins. Officials say this is your opportunity to cast your vote before long lines form on Election Day. When heading to the polls, you'll be asked to identify yourself with either a photo ID or signature on a voter affidavit. You can use your driver's license, a special identification card, a military identification card, or another identification that shows your photo and signature. Early voting begins today at 8:30 and will run until October 29th at 6 p.m. Last night, the Black and Gold took on former Saints head coach Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos, who came out in full force. The Saints have been dealing with some major injuries, with starters like Derek Carr, Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, and many others all out. The final score, 33-10. The Saints take on the LA Chargers next week. All right, for parents with little ghosts and goblins.
The show. I am Dr. Ashanta Wyatt. My co-host in studio this morning is none other than
Senator Wesley Bishop. Wake up, New Orleans.
and Nyron is behind the glass holding it all together. If you are just joining us, we are talking about what's on your ballot. And at the point of our conversation, we are talking about the District 2 and District 4 school board races. And we have callers lighting the phones up. So we're going to go to line 1. Good morning, Lionel. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are both of you? How are
Good.
y'all
We're
doing?
fine, sir.
Okay. What I'm calling about is I would like to see if you can tell the candidates if they're running for office in the Harvey area, where can I go and get literature concerning the many people that's running for office in that area? Because what happened is the information will come to us the day of voting. I go voting. If I go voting early, I won't have the proper information, especially when it comes down to the amendments. I'm just taking a guess on a lot of them. And so I need to know, first of all, the people that are running for the office that represents me. And then secondly, what amendments best will be a blessing to that community. But a lot of times I'm guessing on the amendments. And so I need to find out where can I go and pick up the information today, because I want to early vote today.
Well, Lionel, I'll tell you this. I don't know where you could get the specific literature for candidates that are on the ballot, but in Jefferson Parish, of course, you know you're going to be voting for a presidential nominee, but you're also going to be voting for the U.S. representative in the 1st Congressional District, and that is Randall Aronson, J. Frankie Hires, Mel Manuel, Steve Scalise, and Ross Sales. And you also have a constitutional amendment on there, which provides relative to the federal proceeds from alternative energy production. And then you're going to also vote on the Home Rule Charter Amendment. So you have one amendment, one Home Rule Charter Amendment, and one constitutional amendment. You're going to vote for your 1st Congressional District, U.S. representative, and then the presidential seat on your ballot. But you can go to the Louisiana Secretary of State's website, put your information in, and pull up your sample ballot and see the people's names, and maybe you can reach out. Early voting doesn't end until October 29th. So if you're not comfortable casting your vote right now, you still have the whole 11-day window of early voting to get to know the people who are vying for your vote, which is just the president and the U.S. representative 1st Congressional District seat.
Okay. I can do that.
I hope that helps you. And I'm sorry that the people have not sent literature to your home, but the incumbent is Steve Scalise. Everybody else is challenging him for that 1st Congressional District seat.
I heard Troy Carter's name mentioned.
Well, Troy Carter is not your U.S. representative. He's the 2nd Congressional District. So if you're in that area, you're voting for the 1st Congressional District seat, which is now held by Steve Scalise. So you might want to vote for Troy, but call somebody in the 2nd Congressional District and tell them to hit that button for you, because you are in the 1st Congressional District.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your call. We appreciate you. Line 2. Good morning, Reverend Wallace. How are you? Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Dr. White, and to the Denzel Washington politics, say reformer, say
man, you ought to quit, bro. You ought to quit.
Wesley Bishop. You know, Wesley had suave with him about it. It wasn't about his resume. It's about the way he conducted himself publicly and how he displayed himself personally with you. He had such a charismatic way, and he's a charismatic person, and to say that a resume made him what he is, it's his character. My answer, when a person presents himself, that's who they are. And he was one of the people that you can walk up to, approachable. He was accessible. He was willing to listen, swift to listen. He was engaged with you. And, a lot of time we asking people to put their resume out there in their association. I'm with this, I'm with that. But they have no direct correlation with the community. They're not involved in anything in the community, and they just have an aspiration to run for office because somebody puts a feather up them and told them that they got all this possibility because they look good, they got degree, but they have no hands on the community at all. They have no relationship with the people that they're aspiring to get the vote from. Wesley, you had that. You started from the bottom and you worked your way to the top and you elevated yourself. And that's the way you get it. You got to go out there and put the work in first before, as they say in the Bible, you get a learning before you get a permit. And you have to go out there and prove to people that you are a servant of the community and you deserve elevation. And you need to have a think outside of the box. I don't want traditionalists. I don't want somebody just follow the mandate of the Democratic Party or Republican Party. I want somebody who has a visionary. We call it trendsetters. You need to know what you're there for and why you're there and what you want to bring to the equation different. You want to bring some hope and inspiration to people to let them know, look, I'm that new fresh air. We're gonna do some things we never did before. And that's what Wesley did when he became a state representative. He brought a fresh breath of fresh air to that corridor. And people voted him in without any reservation. I mean, he just walked in office because he had put the work in way before he got to the table. And that's the way politics work. If you don't serve from the bottom, you can't expect to step at the top. That's why, and you have done that in your career, in your life. You have got out on the street, and now God have elevated you. Here you're a host on a radio show. Your name is familiar. People know what you stand for. They're not just listening to somebody just talking about one thing about another. They know the core of your heart. They know your philosophy. They know your character. They know what you believe. They know what you're standing for. And if I call you for something, I know, well, that's in her forte. She's standing for that. That's the whole politics of politics. What you stand for.
Absolutely.
If you stand just for
I
you, if you
absolutely
stand
agree.
just for you and to get ahead, you ain't. That's why we don't have people motivated to go vote, because we put people in office that once they get there, they forget how they got there. I'm the wind under your wing to keep you to go higher, Wesley. If you don't stay with me, you're gonna come down.
Well, listen, we appreciate your
Thank you,
call
Reverend.
and your insight. Thank you, Reverend Wallace. We appreciate
God
you.
bless you. Y'all have a blessed Friday and go vote.
Go vote. Listen, if you ever needed a hype man, I think you might want to call Reverend
Reverend
Wallace
Wallace.
to just walk around behind you with a megaphone and remind the people of what you've done and who you are and where you stand. But I do agree on many of the things many of the sentiments that he shared on the call, because for me, and that's the reason why I pushed the resume question, because most people gonna have a resume, but how does the resume correlate to what it is you are trying to currently do? Like I believe in, mastering the lane that you're in and trying to be of service in the lane that you're prepared for. I just do not understand how we as citizens of this community, residents of this community, don't hold organizations accountable when they are running candidates or putting candidates in a race, to do what though? Like to create political clout for the organization, or are you trying to do what is best for the citizenry? That's what I don't understand. I don't understand how organizations with a basis in education can do anything but put forth a candidate that has a basis and they are rooted in education. I will never understand that. I don't understand that. When I see some of these endorsements, I am confused, because as a voter, if I believe in your organization, that's no different than a politician. If I believe in that politician and then that politician endorses somebody and it's counterintuitive to who I know that politician to be, then I'm questioning what's the motivation behind that support or that endorsement. I'm confused on a lot of levels. I've not seen a union organization back a person that doesn't believe in unions. So when I see, education houses or education organizations put forth candidates that don't have any bearing in education, it makes me think like, so what are we really doing here? If the people trust the organization and the organization is saying this is our candidate, it's very troubling when that candidate doesn't align with the mission and vision of that organization or what that organization says it stands for.
The endorsement process is a very interesting and can be a very tricky process. Long before I ever ran for office, I tried to I work with other candidates that I believed in. Oftentimes, I would go with them when they would go to the endorsement interviews because I wanted to learn the process to see actually how it worked. And there's a process, I guess, before the scenes, but then there's also a process behind the scenes. And one of the most, I would say, the very first time that I ran for office, the most difficult thing that I ever saw is for me to go into an interview and give out my view, my platform, and to think that I was the most qualified person who had the the ability to represent the individuals. But when it all came down to it, I wasn't able to get that endorsement because the reality was that, one, I did not have the money to pay my pro rata share to move forward with that. And oftentimes, not all organizations, but some organizations can be driven solely by that. That's unfortunate.
Well, you preaching to the choir, because I have people who could attest to I earned almost every endorsement there is to earn, and still did not it did not equate to votes because I too could not afford. Some of the proratas was $15,000. Where
Yeah.
am I going to get $15,000 to give to anybody to put my name and face on a ballot? If this is really about informing the voting populace, I understand money makes the world go round. But at the end of the day, there are certain things that money is just can't be a substitute for. We cannot put money before what is best for children. And then you look 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line and you like, I wish I could have
Wish I
done
could have done
something
it, yeah,
differently, because so many children have fallen by the wayside or even died because of decisions we have or have not made, which directly impact children. And I'm just of the mindset that when you are actually walking in your purpose and living out your passions, then doors will be open or hinges will get knocked off doors for you. So I'm not going to trade my integrity or who I am or what I stand for somebody to endorse me. I ain't got it.
Yeah.
Let somebody else do it. That's just how I feel. So if losing a race means I keep my integrity and I keep the foundational pillars of who I am as a person, then so be it. You let somebody else do it, because
Well,
I'm not your girl.
And let me just go one step further. Oftentimes, I get calls from potential candidates, would-be candidates who are thinking about running for office. They'll call and say, hey, Wesley, let's go grab some coffee. I want to pick your brain. And we talk. And the question always comes up, what do you think I need to do to win? One, as we mentioned earlier, I said, one, if you have not prepared yourself, prepare yourself. Whatever that takes, prepare yourself. But also, I think there's a base amount of money that you need. Yeah. What's so bad about it is that, one, you'd be surprised how much it costs to run for office.
I'm
But
not surprised.
The average person who has never run for office, I remember the very first time I ran for office, when someone told me that it was going to cost me $30,000 to be effective and to run a quality campaign, I thought they were kidding.
I couldn't put a dent in my race with $30,000. Let's be clear.
Yes.
I can remember September 28th. I will never forget it. September 28th, which was maybe 2 weeks before Election Day, the young lady that was the incumbent at the time received $1 million. September 28th, $1 million for a school board, a state school board race. 2 weeks before election, $1 million. So I couldn't put a dent in my race with $30,000, and I still earned almost every vote there, every endorsement there was.
Gotcha.
Lost the Republican endorsement by 3 votes, 2 or 3 votes.
Okay.
I mean, so listen, it wasn't because I didn't present well as a candidate. It wasn't because my platform didn't speak to people. It wasn't because of any of that. It was simply because I didn't have all of these millions and billions of dollars pouring into my race, because I wasn't talking the language that they wanted to hear. If I would have gotten out there and talked about how we're going to run through public education and pillage it and pull it all into the private sector, I probably would have been the best rep at the time. If I would have been talking all of the things that sound good, telling parents that you can choose the school that your child goes to, knowing it's a fallacy, I would probably be the best rep. But most folk who are voting are not intimately connected to the facts of what choice
Correct.
means.
Correct.
It sounds good, but if you could really choose your school, why do I have to have 12 options on a one app? Explain it to me. If it's authentic choice, if I can go wherever I want, you tell parents that because it's a dream, right? It sounds good. It sounds like something that any parent would want. You get to choose your child's school. You don't have to be relegated to a failing school system and all of the things that they told the parents. But when you fill out that one app and you realize that all 6 of the schools who are like probably in contention for your child, you can't even get in them because there are no seats, or either there's admission requirements, then you're like, wait, so all I have at my disposal are C, D, and F schools? How is that real choice? But that's not what they're saying to parents. They're saying, choose me. I'm going to make sure that you can choose your child's school, because that's what this flyer says in front of me, that it gives parents more choice in selecting the best school for their child. That's a flat out fallacy.
Correct.
It's not true. And so for me, that is my issue. How do we endorse people? How do we allow organizations to operate in our city who endorse people who we know are not good for children in terms of school board seats? Listen, you could play those political games with all them other things. Don't play with my children. That's all I'm saying. Play politics with everything else you want to play politics with. Have at it. But I'm a guard dog when it comes down to you selling dreams to families, because I'm going to be the person they call once they fall for the banana in a tailpipe and they're like, Dr. Wyatt, can you help me with this school because X, Y, and Z, right? Stop telling lies. Like if you're actually honest about your product and you actually believe in your product, there should be no reason why you can't tell the truth about your product and let people decide with the truth at their disposal. It's hard to make a decision as a parent when you don't know what's real and what's not. And then you're getting a nice, shiny flyers to your home all the time talking about how great the school is and it's an A school. And then you look in the fine print and it says A for growth. Growth and proficiency will never be the same. Growth can simply mean in the fall we were a 56. In the spring we're a 59. Yes, we grew, but we're still failing. Right?
Absolutely.
So we have to educate parents on what good schools are supposed to look like and feel like, and what good leaders are supposed to be saying, and what school leadership is supposed to be doing on your behalf. Because when we entrust people with our children, our kids are with our schools the majority of the day. Let's just be honest here. By the time kids get home, it's homework, dinner. You might watch a little TV, take your bath, and get in the bed. Right? So why are we allowing organizations to put forth candidates who we know and they know don't serve in the best interest of children, and we still believe in them as an organization?
Well, what's unfortunate about this entire process, and I talked about, I guess I was a student of politics long before I ever decided to offer myself for service. And part of what you see is that, and as I talked to other individuals who had been successful in that process, they gave out some good information. Because oftentimes you have a situation whereby you may be facing David versus Goliath. And when I say that is that you may have a candidate who may be extremely funded, who has tons of money, who can do whatever needs to be done to get out and touch those individuals. What I was told, and to this day I stand by, was that you try and touch people as much as you possibly can and try and get your message out. And what I mean by that is, I happened to run in a state representative district, and in that district, there were 25,000 voters. So my initial thought was that was who I needed to touch. As I talked to individuals who are experts in this, they said, well, so you ain't got to talk to 25,000 voters.
You'll never get
you
to
just
the
talk
end
to
of it.
2,500. And though that was counter to everything that I thought, I said, that doesn't make any sense. I got to knock on all these doors. See, the reality is that these are the individuals based upon past
Who going in
performance
the ballot
who are
and
going to
going in
go
the
and
booth.
vote. So I began to knock on every 2,500 doors.
So let me
And
ask you something, Senator.
Yes.
Since you have all of this historical knowledge, you said the district that you ran in, right? Did you live in that district?
Yes.
How important is it a part of the? Because when you go and put yourself up for service, there are some pillars that you have to check,
Absolutely.
right? And making sure your taxes are together is the first
Exactly.
way people attack you. But how do you represent a district that you don't necessarily live in?
Legally, you can't.
Well, legally you can, because there are people currently holding seats in our city who don't live in the district that they serve. I can tell you right now, when I ran for the Bessie seat, that is the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, the young lady that I ran against has never lived in the state as a homestead,
Okay.
right? And everybody knew it. So how do we uphold those kinds of things, right? And we had congressman at the time endorsing her. Like, these are the things that I'm talking about. If I believe in my congressman, and I'm not talking about our current congressman, because I ran for Bessie years ago, right? But if we believe in our congressman and we're watching our congressman do things and we're believing in him, and so whoever he endorses, we believe that must be the best candidate, right? Those are the things I believe have to structurally be burned down in our city in order for us to build it back up so that people can start to believe in what their vote actually means. That's why people are not connected to the voting process, because we've seen it fail us time and time again. And then you come every year and you tell us what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, and every year we get disappointed. Every year so if you're telling me living in the district is the legal thing to do, how do people get away with holding seats in districts that they do not reside in. How is that even possible? So I want you to hold that thought because that's a important question
Sure.
since you have all of this
Sure.
institutional knowledge about politics. I want to know, and anybody who want to call me and share with me is 504-582-9422. How is it that people get away with qualifying for seats in districts that they do not live in, or qualifying for a race in a state that they do not live in? And people in political positions know about it, even endorse them, knowing that they're breaking the law. How is that even legal? How do grassroots people even have a chance when situations like that are happening? We're talking all things what's on your ballot. We're talking all things politics with the guru, the person with all of the institutional knowledge. I'm just an educator, y'all. I don't know these things, so we gonna ask the senator. Stay
Will
with
do.
us. Stay with us after the break. This is WBOK 1230 AM.
What New Orleans is talking about.
This is your news update for WBOK 1230.
Good morning show. I was just telling the senator this is bigger than Nino
Doc
Brown.
is killing me this morning.
So that's
she
why
is.
we laughing off air. But before we went to break, we were talking about this idea of organizations throwing their support and their legitimacy behind candidates who are not in lockstep with their mission or what you say you're about, right?
Mhm.
I've never seen a union, in my opinion, support a non-union candidate. Like if a person is going to get up there and be like, I don't believe in unions. I think, we need to make sure this is an at-will state. We don't need unions. And I've never seen like a union come behind them and say, yes, that's our candidate. You know what I mean? So I'm trying to understand, why is it that organizations, and political figures, outside of it being about money, because it got to be, please tell me it's about more than just money. Because if it's only about money, that makes it even worse. Because that tells me that there's a price tag for almost everything in this world. And I would like to believe that some things should be above being able to be bought and sold, in my opinion. But I mean, how does this happen? How does a person not have residency here, but can hold a seat here, not have residency in the States, but can hold a state seat? How does that work?
Well, my understanding is that when somebody actually qualifies, you have to list exactly where you live, where you have a homestead exemption, things along those lines. And we understand that when you do that, you actually swear an oath as to what you're saying is the actual truth. Most individuals, I guess, in a race, once qualifying is over with, and let's say qualifying ends at 5 o'clock, the second it's 5:01 and you are officially a candidate, that's, I guess, when the interest and the fun in some cases actually begins. But then you take a look at it, say, well, before I begin to mount a serious candidate against this person, let me make sure this person has dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's to actually make sure that they're a candidate. Have they paid their taxes? Are they registered to vote? Have they done this? Do they actually live in the district? Most individuals, before you decide to run, make sure that all of those issues are taken care of. So when you're challenged, that's not going to happen. When you're a student of politics and you see what's happened in the past, you understand that that's the first thing that your opponents are going to actually do. So when that goes on, and recently in the election for the second majority black Supreme Court seat in the Baton Rouge area, you had 3 individuals who all ran, and the very first thing that happened is they were challenged. 2 of the 3 were knocked out, and now you only have 1 individual who's running for that particular seat. And that's before a dollar is spent on any campaigns. So that's the case across the board, no matter what seat you're running in.
Well, here's my follow-up question to that, because I want to understand, how is it that you have to pay your money to go and qualify for a seat? You have to raise your hand and swear to what you wrote on the paper. But if I am supposed to challenge your residency or your ability to be in the race because you have not done your taxes or whatever the case may be, why is the onus on me to challenge that? Why isn't it on the people who I sit before and raise my hand and say, I attest that this is true and factual? And why is it not on the people who I handed my $900 to qualify? Like, why aren't they vetting to ensure that the address that you put down is actually where you live? Like, why is it on the person who's challenging, whether it be a citizen or whether it be a candidate who's deciding to challenge this person? Why isn't it on the structure to make certain that what's on the paper and what they've attested to is true and factual?
I think that's a great question. And I think for our listening audience and for some of the elected officials or folks who are in office or considering running for office, there might be great legislation to take a look at that. I don't want to misspeak and give you bad information. I don't know.
I appreciate that. But I think, but something has to be done about that. Like, if I, because as a grassroots candidate, right, I knew the person who was holding my seat was not a resident here. I watched her be challenged, and I watched the courts uphold her. I watched that happen. She did not get put out of the race, right?
Okay.
We knew she didn't live here. Even the politicians who supported her knew she didn't live here. So how is it that we allow these things to happen, and then you want a voter to believe in the voting structure? Like, and you want me to believe in what you're saying you're going to do for me when the structure itself is tainted. Something has to be done about that. I shouldn't have to prove that you don't live here.
And I get that, but let me just go one step further. The vast majority of individuals who are going to cast their vote don't pay attention and don't know anything about it actually being challenged, a judge making a ruling. Most of what they know about is when either somebody knocks on their door, somebody sends out a mailer, somebody begins a campaign, and it's actually time
or
to
your
vote.
congressman says this is who you should vote for.
Well,
Let's
but-
be clear,
well,
because
but that-
if a person doesn't know that person, but they know the bigger name,
Okay.
if that person's face and name is next to the congressman, they're going to assume that this is the person I should vote for because my congressman or my state rep or my mayor is doing commercials for them and stomping the ground. Come on now. Let's just be honest here. There's something very tainted about the structure, and we need to be honest about it so that people can start to believe in the process of voting again. Because it cannot just be about who has the most money, who can buy the endorsement, who can buy the support. It should not only be about that. We have a caller on line 1. Good morning, Miss Alicia. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Oh, you got me screaming in this call. Screaming. I agree with you 100%. It should not be on the candidate or the candidate's group to make the legal challenge. It shouldn't be. It should be checked. If I give you a complaint, like for instance, Ethan Ashley been sitting on the school board illegally. Till this day, he lived in his colleague's district. And everybody on the board knows it. And the attorney knows it. And nothing's been done about it. We know in your race, this woman lived in several states the whole time she was in office, and they did nothing. Nothing. Even her campaign manager fessed up that she does not live in the state. And nothing happened. I don't think the onus should be on the candidate, the opponent, or the opponent's campaign group. You should be able to go to the Secretary of State that qualifies the candidate, and investigation should happen from there because they outright lied. They perjured themselves, and that's illegal. I'll hang up and listen. Y'all have a great weekend.
Thank you for your call. So listen, I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, you have all of this institutional knowledge. You've run before. You've won before. I've only run once. Have no intent to ever run again.
Okay.
Let's be clear, because what I'm not going to do is run broke. Understand that, okay? So for me, I am not the expert in this lane. I will always defer to the person who has the information. That is why I will call Senator Dr. Joseph Bowie when I don't understand something. I can call Congressman Troy Carter when I don't understand something. What I'm trying to understand is if there are rules put in place and you're telling me these rules correlate to legalities, how is it that people can break the law and still represent a district or represent a state, represent a seat that they do not necessarily qualify for because qualification says you should live here? Qualification says you should have your taxes done for a number of years prior to running. Correct. That's what that's what you're attesting to when you raise your hand and give them your money. So why then, if I find a fault with your candidacy, it's my responsibility to then undo it? Why? Why is it on me?
Well, let me kind of try and explain it to my understanding and see if it makes sense to our listening audience. And I've followed this for many, many years. I got my start many years ago working with a state senator in New Orleans East, and I watched his campaign, both the good and the bad, and tried to take that information and try and move forward with it on any campaigns that I would have. And I know that we're about to go to break, and maybe after the break we can touch on it just a second and try and adjust your question.
Let's make sense of it. But I didn't want your thought to be lost in going to break. But we have been talking for the last hour about what's on your ballot, understanding who and what you are voting for, trying to break down this idea of why people have fell out of like with the voting structure. Because if my vote doesn't really hold any weight, if I'm voting and then my vote is up against all of this out of state money, then how do we break down structures when people who we are supposed to believe in and trust in are also supporting those structures? It's very, very hard. But listen, early voting has started today, October 18th. It is going to run until October 29th. If you're here in the city, you can go to the Treme Community Center to cast your ballot. I'm going to try to look up to see if there are other voting locations out there. And if you know of any, you can call 504-582-9422 so we can share that list with our listening audience. But stay with us. After the break, we're going to talk to Dejon Jordan, Executive Director of the Broad Community Connections. We're going to talk all things Home Fest, history, culture, and the local economy. Stay right here with us, WBOK 1230 AM.
What New Orleans is talking about.
Anytime. So, like, talk to us. How you feeling today? It's a Friday. You're feeling good.
I'm just glad to be able to
Weekend.
take a sweater out of the closet and put it on and pretend like we have winter for a little bit.
For a moment, because
Yeah.
I think later on it's going to be in the 80s. So enjoy it while it lasts.
Back to
What about you,
normal.
Miss Lisa? How you feeling?
I'm feeling well. Everything is going good in the world of culture.
Listen.
Now, Lisa, you look like you went to McDonald 35 Senior High School. Are
I
you a
look like
Ron
a
Eagle?
Ron Eagle. That's right, ladies.
You heard me?
Hey,
You
Let me tell
heard
something.
me?
Let me tell you something. Don't let him put you in a trap now. Because when you start talking schools, it can get real critical around here.
That's right.
Because first of all, you in a house St. Augustine built. These purple knights around here.
Absolutely.
They running around like like what high school you went to, DJ?
Oh, don't do me that. I'm a Katrina baby.
You're
so.
you're a Katrina baby? Mm-hmm. Oh, so you're a baby.
Don't do me that.
But you would have went to 35.
No, I would have been at McMain.
Listen,
I
let's
just
talk
started.
about it. McMain.
Gotcha,
We always want to shout out pre-Katrina New Orleans because, you know, they like to run around and tell us that our school system was trash, but the school produced the executive director of the Broad Community Connections and a CEO of NOTCF and a senator over here. And, of course, a doctor of education. We can't be doing too bad, huh? Come on now. Ring the bell for that. But let's talk about it. What about Home Fest? What you got going on?
So Home Fest is happening this Sunday from 12 to 6 on the historic Bayou Road, and this is the 9th year that it's happened. It's a community festival just celebrating our local talent, our history, our culture, and really trying to elevate the brick and mortars on Bayou Road and the investment that's been there at least the last 20 years and the history that comes before that.
I actually like the name of it, Home Fest.
Yeah, we have Mama Vera Warren Williams from Community Book Center
Shout out
to thank
Mama
for that.
Vera. That's my birthday twin. You know that.
Come on.
She is born on September 20th. I'm not going to tell
Former
you.
Come
Miss-
on, Virgo sister.
Her age because she looked like fine wine. But
That's right.
she's my birthday twin.
Come
Shout
on,
out to
Virgo
Mama
twin.
Vera.
Come
yeah.
on. Yeah, but between her and Mama Jennifer Turner,
I love Mama Jen.
they created Home Fest in 2013 when they were dealing with the results of, outside festivals and stuff like that, taken from local talent and culture and not having an equitable platform to celebrate talent. So it was like, hey, you were good getting us started. Now you can pay to be here, even though you helped to create a lot of this.
Yes.
And so they said instead of putting all their energy and shutting down their shop on Bayou Road, they said, why don't we just put it home? We're going to do something at home and call it Home Fest.
So, look, you know you're good when you answer the question before we ask the question. Because the question was to tell us about the origin of Home Fest and what inspired its creation. But you just did that, DJ. That's that New Orleans public school education.
That's it.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Shout out.
So can you tell us how Home Fest has evolved since its inception in 2013?
So in 2013, Home Fest started as pop-ups and performances within Community Book Center space. They even were fortunate enough to have Miss Ayanna Van Zant show up with intention to come and do book
Miss
signings.
Fix My Life, huh?
Exactly.
Vision in the Valley.
Before she was there, but to do an author talk, so they were able to pack out the space. And around COVID recovery time, so 2022, there was a conversation again about how to make sure that it truly benefited all of the businesses on Bayou Road. And so the Community Book Center offered it up as their own offering to say, how do we make this a community festival, like on the street? And so over the last couple of years, it's been basically a block party, same ethos, party with a purpose, panels, tons of resources, but being intentional about making sure people know about Bayou Road and all that Black New Orleans has to offer.
So, listen, talking about significance and impact, what role does Bayou Road play in the festival's identity?
It's essential. Without Bayou Road, there's no Home Fest. And because tons of Black families, a few Black families decided to choose to invest in Bayou Road, including Miss Vera and her husband, the McGillises, the McKennas, the Hubbards, and a couple others, the festival is in service to Bayou Road and to those business owners to make sure people are aware. So what you'll see during the festival is different activations and discounts and promotions that each business will have, and we'll have an opportunity for people to get to experience them in their fullest.
I think anybody that comes here, I think that there should be no reason why they're not visiting Bayou Road. You know, folk think the French Quarter is where you should be when you come to New Orleans, but Bayou Road, I mean the energy on Bayou Road, like you feel home. That's why I said the name of the fest is really, really dope, because you're not leaving Bayou Road if you ain't hug 5-6 people.
That's true.
Before you went to your car. Like, just let's be honest here, right? That's just what it
Absolutely.
is. It feels like home. What do you say, Senator?
I definitely agree with you. Lisa, I had a question for you. How does Home Fest celebrate the history and culture of New Orleans, particularly in relation to the free people of color here in the city?
It exemplifies that as he's speaking to Home Fest and the meaning and the history and the spirit on Bayou Road. New Orleans Tourism and Cultural Fund, we are in place to support our history. It isn't about celebrating culture all the time, but it's about ensuring that we are preserving our culture, and that's through education, that's through lifting it up, and that's through making sure we invest in the businesses, the people, and the organizations that are supporting, sustaining, and educating.
I think you said a mouthful when you said it's not only about celebrating our culture, because while we're busy celebrating, people are busy pillaging. So we have to preserve it. We have to make certain that people respect the identity of this community. Like, we have this conversation here on WBOK all the time about New Orleans versus NOLA. NOLA feels very gentrified to me. I don't allow people to tell me that I'm from New Orleans.
Same.
And I'm very, very clear about that, because words matter, right? And the intent behind your words matter. So, you notice almost every business popping up now, it's NOLA this and NOLA. This is New Orleans. So when you say celebrate your culture, to preserve it as well. Like, that was very
Absolutely.
impactful, and I wanted to make certain that I echoed that sentiment.
Let's talk a little bit about economic development and money. What impact has HomeFest had on local businesses and the economy of this area?
So in the early years, we weren't able to do a lot of the data and metrics, but over the last couple of years, we've been very intentional about being able to understand the traffic that comes to Bayou Road as well as the dollars, and we're doing an even better job this year. We've been able to count about $200,000 in impact just on that day. And there's a multiplier effect about investment that happens after. So most people see the festival and go dollars, but my organization, Broad Community Connections, the Bayou Road Business Association, and Black Bayou, they're all entities that have been stewards of Bayou Road, and so we've been able to get investment in beautification to make sure that people know where they are even when there's no festival.
And I need to commend you guys on what you're doing and trying to make sure that you develop the Bayou Road area. I'm sitting here thinking, in just the last 3 weeks, we've had 3 major festivals whose purpose was to move and to provide some infrastructure and put an influx of dollars, particularly in the Black community. In New Orleans East, we had the New Orleans East Festival. In Gentilly, at Pontchartrain Park, we had the Gentilly Fest. And now with Home Fest, right in the area there near Bayou Road, focusing on that. So we definitely appreciate that and want to make sure, if we're talking about $200,000 now, a year from now, we'd love to see a situation whereby we can double that amount and keep moving forward and put those kind of resources into that particular area. Along those same lines, in what way does Home Fest address local challenges within the New Orleans community?
So one thing that we've been very intentional about is that piece about purpose-driven events. Like, it's easy to want to do a festival, and you can talk to anybody on my team on Bayou Road. No, people aren't really interested in the festivals, but what they are interested in is making sure we reach the people with existing resources.
Gotcha.
We had an entrepreneurship panel earlier this year about different technical assistance resources for small businesses, different forms of access to capital, and no one knew that those resources existed.
That's right.
And so what we're very intentional about every year at Home Fest is making sure that there are a ton of resources. Right now, we have about 30 resource organizations that literally are going to line Bayou Road. And so everything from housing to climate to social services to youth serving organizations, just to make sure people are aware. Because it's easy to get caught up in the party, but if you put all the resources in the back where nobody can see them, then people are coming for the party and not for the resources.
So talking about people wanting to participate, let's say I'm a vendor. I'm not. I don't have anything to vend. But what opportunities are available for vendors who wish to participate at Home Fest?
So currently, the applications are closed. However,
we missed the deadline.
However, you can send an email to homefest at broadcommunityconnections.org, and we will contact you and follow up to make sure that we're timely. But also, if there are special opportunities that make sense, that we can make something work, then we'll do our best to make it work.
And you're not going to know if you don't email them. What's that email again? Homefest?
Homefest at broadcommunityconnections.org.
Homefest at Broad Community Connections. Yes. So if you wanted to look into the opportunity to be a vendor, even if you miss this opportunity, I'm sure is Homefest going to be an annual?
Yep, it'll continue annually, but also what we encourage people to do is to email us, because there are other events and opportunities where we want to make sure resources get to the people. So this isn't the first or last event that's going to happen on Bayou Road or in the Broad Street area.
So what motivates people individuals to volunteer for Home Fest, and what roles do they typically take on?
People sign up for volunteer opportunities with Home Fest really because they're committed to the cause and the vision of what Bayou Road is trying to accomplish with all the stewards, right? Some of our stakeholders would say, community members would say, it's a Black destination location. You don't have, like you said, you don't have to go to the French Quarter. So people want to figure out how they can be in service if they don't have a business or an organization to share a resource with, but they want to just get involved. And some people just want to get involved in festival production. So we have a couple of different opportunities from setup to breakdown to being runners on the stage. So, and even cleanup, but people all have something to contribute. And that's kind of the model we take within Bayou Road, within our organization, Broad Community Connections, that everybody can be a leader where they are, and there's an opportunity for everybody to pitch in.
Mr. Jordan, you've been involved with Home Fest since its inception, or when did you join?
So I officially got involved in Home Fest in 2017.
Okay.
But in terms of supporting it to become a festival on both blocks, it's been the last 3 years.
So how important is your partnership with Miss Lisa over there at NOTCF? Like, how important and impactful is having the support of NOTCF?
It's essential. It's essential. When you have support from the city and people see that there's investment and intentionality, other people flock. And it's just like our regular work, which is investing in small businesses and their capacity. When there's the public sector that steps forward, then the private sector and all the other partners step in and say, we can be confident that this is something that's going to be committed to. And so to have Ms. Alexis, to have NOTCF, to have the mayor's office stand behind this is us affirming ourselves and not waiting for everybody else to affirm us.
What has been your most memorable moment at Home Fest in the time you've been involved?
The most memorable moment I had was in 2022 when a couple of just regular Bayou Road folks said this felt like a family reunion after COVID. Like, we've been locked in the house. For me to be able to not just come and party, but I could bring my family. They can get what they need. They can enjoy themselves. We can have everything from learning activities to, if I want to grab a drink, I can do all of that on Bayou Road with my community. And there's not many places where I could do that in my neighborhood.
And it's a networking.
I was going to ask that question.
While spending time there, you see other people and other areas and occupations, and then where you don't have enough time to maybe schedule a meeting or a Zoom, you actually conduct business. So I was able to conduct business at Home Fest last year, and it was wonderful in helping people connect to the resources, just like you're saying, and connecting to one another so that they can continue to grow their businesses that were there.
Yeah, and I also think about this idea. You know, people always tell you about how the black dollar doesn't really work its way through Black communities long enough. And so I look at Home Fest as an opportunity for Black dollars to be invested in Black businesses, help grow Black communities and Black families. So I think that is extremely important as well.
You actually reading my bio, you gave that last answer. What do you hope attendees will feel after experiencing Home Fest? What's the takeaway?
I would say pride, a sense of self-determination.
You'd have thought he went to CAR because that's pillars. Or at
the University of CAR.
At CAR.
She had to do it. She outnumbered today, so she had to do it.
They started with me. You know that's a New Orleans thing.
Come on.
But I'm also saying in the comments, they say Miss Vera is also a Ron Eagle as well. So we want to put Miss Vera out there.
She's also a Black Knight from Suno, Miss Suno.
And she was also NOTCF's first honoree because we have our honors gala, and she was an honoree. It was awesome.
Shout out to Miss Vera. Isn't she the whole Bayou Road? Yes, I love Mama Jen over there as well. And I love the fact that NOTCF honors real cultural bearers in this city, like people who are on the ground, grassroots, making a difference in community and strengthening Black unity. So, yeah.
What are some of the future goals of Home Fest as it continues to grow?
To just be community centered, right? It's easy to grow and want to scale and have this impact that's beyond where we are. But what we want to do is make sure more and more people, not just around the country, but specifically around the city, know that we have the talent, we have the resources, we have everything we need to be successful. but sometimes we just don't know where it is. And Bayou Road in general wants to be that place where people go and say, look, if I need a job, an internship, I can go to Bayou Road. If I want to go hang out with my friends and I'm a teenager, I can do that. If I want to go have a drink and I'm at Whiskey and Sticks, I can relax. So it's making sure that Bayou Road has something for everybody. But beyond that, it's being a model and a signal for folks across the city that like place-based economic development can happen. And so often we're told it has to be downtown, it has to be in a place where we don't live in or we can't afford to be. But if we're intentional, like many of the black families of Bayou Road, all of the business owners, we can have whatever we desire. We just have to imagine it, and sometimes that means going the distance for it.
Listen, Home Fest, a festival celebrating local history, culture, and commerce. It will take place Sunday, October 20th, 2024, in the 2400th and 2500th block of Bayou Road from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. They're asking you to bring your chairs, y'all.
Yeah.
Listen, there will be music, crafts, food, resources, children's activities, panels, talks, and more. And they will have performances by the headliner, Tweet, R&B sensation and songstress, Tweet. Listen, there are a ton of community partners, but in studio right now is one of their major community partners, Miss Lisa Alexis over there at NOTCF. So come out to Bayou Road on Sunday, 12 to 6. Make sure you bring your chair, y'all. Any parting words before you leave us?
I just want to thank all of our partners, especially the Andre Caillou Center for Performing Arts and Cultural Justice. Like without them as an anchor, the McKennas, the Williams, the Hubbards, the McGillises, just really grateful for the commitment that the Bayou Road community has to its people, even when it might cost them.
Shout out to Bayou Road Home Fest this Sunday, October 20th, 12 to 6. We've been talking to DJ, the executive director of the Broad Community Connections, and Lisa Alexis, the CEO of NOTCF. Come home, y'all, on Bayou Road, 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. Sunday, October 20th. Stay with us right here after the break. More on WBOK 1230 a.m.
What New Orleans is talking about.
What New Orleans is always talking about.
Thank you, guys.
The Executive Director of Broad Community Connections, and Ms. Lisa Alexis, the CEO of NOTCF. They were talking all things Home Fest, history, culture, and the local economy. But right now in studio, we have some superstars, y'all. I just said, look, every time I see y'all on TV, we have some superstars from Rise St. James.
Rise St. James.
The Sharon Levine, Director and Founder of Rise St. James, Mr. Robert Taylor, Executive Director of Concerned Citizens of St. John, and Kate Lyon, Research and Policy Coordinator. Welcome to the Good Morning Show. How are you?
Well, thank you so much. Great to be on here with y'all.
Listen, it's great to have you. Like anytime Rise St. James comes, baby, we clear the schedule for them. Like it's important that we have. You might want to get her autograph while you still can get it. She gonna be on some movies or something. Both of them they gonna be.
Oh,
on
I have her
movies,
autograph tattooed on me. That's what I did when I joined Rise.
Yes, you better get in right now. How you doing, Miss Sharon?
I'm doing pretty good this
It's
morning.
good to see you smiling with all this heavy lifting y'all are doing. So, we thank you for the work that you're doing on behalf of the entire community of St. James. So thank you for your service. How are you, Mr. Robert? With your handsome self.
Wow.
Mhm.
You know I'm doing well.
That's how you disown the man, Miss Sharon. You're telling me everything is easy after that.
I said, what you need?
Yeah. So how you doing, Mr. Are you good?
I'm good.
Good. Well, you look good.
Well,
So
thank you.
for those, we have some very chronic WBOK listeners, but for the people who may be joining us for the first time or listening from a whole entirely different state, what is the significance of Rise St. James?
To protect the people, the environment, down Cancer Alley and throughout St. James Parish.
So when you say Cancer Alley, can you explain what is Cancer Alley? Because I believe we have our own version of it here when we talk about people living on toxic soil.
School site.
And and things of that nature. We're dealing with some things like that here in the city of New Orleans, but I know that y'all are dealing with a whole different beast.
We're dealing
over
with a
in
whole lot of sickness.
Whole
and
lot of
it's
sickness.
Cancer. There's a lot of people with cancer. And we had the highest breast cancer in 2018 in St. James Parish. So
In the state?
It's a lot. No, in St. James Parish.
Oh, in St. James Parish. So that area had the highest.
The highest in 2018.
Oh my God.
Mr. Taylor, though, out in St. John, you have the highest cancer rates in the entire state, if not the country out there.
In the country.
In the country.
Okay.
There's
Right
something criminal about that. There is something criminal about that.
When-
Last time you hear, you almost made me cry.
Oh, really?
Because just hearing things like this, like I think about, just civil rights, right? And just being truly free and truly liberated. And as much as people say that's what we are, when you hear stories like this, then what is freedom? Because do you have the freedom to even just breathe clean air, and live on healthy soil? It's insane to think that a parish as small as that has the highest cancer rate in the country. That's criminal.
That what's really criminal about it to
Yes.
me is in 2018, EPA notified our organization and gave us some stats. They told us that our community had a cancer risk that was 1,500 times the national average.
1,500?
1,540 times the national average. We have this elementary school. This plant was located about 400 yards from this elementary school. And those children, kindergarten through fourth grade, are exposed at 400 to 700 times what EPA says is a safe level of chloroprene exposure.
Mr. Taylor, in that same report, did they ever tell you what they would attribute those high levels to? Did they ever direct you in any direction as to what it is?
They were specific about it, sir,
Okay.
and I left that out. They said very clearly, as a result of your exposure to chloroprene from DuPont Denker, your cancer risk is 1,540 times the national average. As a direct result of our exposure to the chemical chloroprene that is being dumped in our environment by DuPont Denker. And we have fought this battle, especially about those poor children who the government now tells us that a child born today in St. John the Baptist Parish, his lifetime exposure, he has reached that child at the age of 2. The 70-year exposure level, that child has reached that level by the time my great-grandson, my granddaughter had a baby 2 years ago. He's still not normal. He's not talking. We got special treatments for him. And that child has surpassed his 70-year limit already. He's 2.5 years old.
I know you guys have a tremendous track record in advocating on behalf of the communities, both in St. James and in St. John. Can you talk a little bit about some of the efforts that you've had in educating the public, and even that not just beyond that immediate area, but going beyond New Orleans, Baton Rouge, state of Louisiana, and around the country? You guys have gotten a great deal of exposure for the advocacy that you do. Talk a little bit about that and how individuals and other folks can get involved and help and assist you in trying to advocate.
Yes, we have. Sharon and I have been doing quite a lot of traveling. I was fortunate to actually have the opportunity to address the United Nations.
Okay.
I was surprised when I landed in that city. The people who recognized my face, they didn't know, they couldn't call my name. Some of them did, but all of them said, Cancer Alley.
Yeah.
When they saw me, they said, oh, Cancer Alley. Some of them said, Fifth Ward Elementary. You know, and I was just shocked that I'm standing before, 250 free nations, and those people applauded me. The president at the time of that organization said that was unusual, that they don't do that kind of stuff. But those people, the world is aware.
Mm-hmm.
But nothing is being done. We cannot get the attention of the president of the Council of St. John. We cannot get council members. We cannot get school board members. When we got the new president in 2020 and he selected Mr. Regan as the EPA administrator, I had been marching, we had been marching on Baton Rouge. We actually, to get the ear of the governor, of people like Ken Brass, who somebody mentioned this morning. They totally ignored us. When we got this new administration and this new EPA administrator, he called St. John, he called my organization and talked to me. He said, Mr. Taylor, I want to come to the reserve. I want to see us. I want you to take me. He walked the streets. Not one politician.
Not one.
He went to that school. We stood in a yard of that school. We couldn't get a school board member. St. John the Baptist Parish is a majority black parish. Mm-hmm. The school board is made up of 11 members, 8 of which are black. This is a black school in a black community. These are black children. Black children that are being exposed. In Washington, D.C., their plight was understood. This man came all the way there. Not one of the local people showed up.
Why do you think that is? What is the hesitation or the reservation about supporting the work that you guys are doing to raise awareness for this issue?
They are in the pockets of industry.
Elections out there are real cheap to run.
So it's synonymous with why people don't talk up against guns and trying to get common sense gun control because they're being funded by the NRA at some point, right?
Yes.
So we were just talking about that this has to be about more than money, especially when children are dying and being made sick. Because even though we have different plights here, the foundational reasons why we fight are all the same. People just want basic humanity, dignity, right? I don't understand why it would take a man to dedicate his entire existence to fight against something that you can clearly see is wrong.
That's right.
And I don't know how anybody can turn a blind eye to it. It's wrong. But I will always say, when things like this start to affect different demographics of people or different social economic statuses of people, then you'll get people to come on board and start paying attention. But the problem is this country doesn't care about poor people. This country doesn't care about poor black people. That's the real issue here.
That's right.
Because for me, there is no way I could sit by and say absolutely nothing as a person in a decision-making role or a policy-creating role and not do something about this. How many children have to be sick or die?
How many people have to die?
lineages of families have to die off before
That's
you
right.
say something is wrong here? And it requires our immediate attention.
It does.
What do you have to do? Like, who has to die? Like, whose life will be enough to say, okay, this is a problem?
The politicians. I think if some of them, it would hit some of those people, they might wake up and try to help us to stop this.
I don't do.
I'm sorry.
No, you have the floor. Like, this is your segment. Go ahead.
I think it's more complicated than that. It's insidious. And right now, for instance, I was born and raised in Reserve.
Okay.
You know, I built my home. My parents are there. My children, my great-grandchildren are there now. And when this problem came up, and I dedicated the last years of my life to fighting this, I found out that this has been, as what's really happening, here's a perfect example of what I'm trying to say. I hope I can contain myself here. When you,
don't
asked
have
me, when you asked me that question of why, and it's a very complicated, but the answer is simple. The plants have so much power. They have I heard of company towns. This place is owned by the petrochemical industry. But where they have us poor people in Cancer Alley, they have us under their total control because there are organizations that's coming from outside our community under the guise of helping us.
Oh, that sounds familiar.
But they are actually working in the interest of the petrochemical industry.
Let's talk about it. We have a caller, line 1. Good morning, Reverend Calhoun. Welcome to the Good Morning
Good
Show.
morning, Reverend.
Good morning. Again, it's in to all your guests. We do understand the fight that goes on. Excuse me. Environmental issues that's coming into communities are real. It seems like we are always the target. We now would love to sit down with Rise St. James and St. John because they're trying to bring a grain terminal into the lower Ninth Ward. That grain terminal will impact this community in such ways that's beyond belief. So just listening at you guys and trying to get some insight on how to move forward against this grain terminal that's coming. We love to sit down and get that information that we need to sit down with you guys just to talk about how to move forward in this fight with the port and others that want to bring this environmental hazard into the community. So if I can get some information from anybody that's willing to sit down and talk to us, we do know they tried to bring a grain elevator in St. John, and St. John did stop it. So we're now looking at how do we come together to fight what we see coming into the lower Ninth Ward. So if you would, just let me know what information or who we can speak to talk about how to move forward.
Thank you, Reverend Calhoun, for your call.
That's coming our way.
Thank you.
Ms. Levine, what are some of the long-term health effects of lead exposure, particularly for children? It really, I guess, hit home when I heard you make mention that you have a granddaughter who, at the age of 2, has already received a lifetime of exposure at 2 years old. That registered with me when you said that. So I wanted to really talk to you about that. Let's talk about what are some of the long-term effects when someone receives that kind of exposure?
Yeah. So lead exposure, when I was writing this, I actually just had a baby like 4 months ago. And writing this, it was just hit different because lead exposure, some of the chemicals that we cover here in the chemical of the month are things like, you know what, if we shut this plant down, if this plant changed their practices, this chemical wouldn't exist in the environment anymore. But lead's not one of those. It's pervasive. When it enters the body, especially of a child, The story that still gives me chills every time I tell it is that a child who is exposed to lead, when their body is growing and building their skeleton, it uses calcium to build the skeleton, but the body gets confused when there's lead in the environment as well. And so the lead will enter into the skeleton of the child and become a part of their body forever. And then if that's a girl child, if she grows up to have her own baby, when she's growing that baby's body, and the body is taking calcium from her own bones, it takes the lead with it too. And so her child is born exposed without, she might have moved away from that lead. It's a generational tragedy.
Listen, we have to go to break, but I want you to speak to Reverend Calhoun's point. You guys are dealing with it now. He's saying that they're prepping themselves to deal with something that will kind of correlate to the issues that you guys are having, and he's asking for a conversation, or how do they prepare to get themselves ready for something that's coming in and they probably can't stop it from coming.
They can stop it.
So that's what he's asking. So that's what he's asking. What can he do? And we want to get to his point.
Give him a number or something.
So when we come back from the break, you can just talk to him over the air. He's listening.
Okay.
And then you can give them that information.
Okay.
More with Rise St. James after the break. This is WBOK 1230 AM.
What New Orleans is talking about.
This is your news update for WBOK 1230 AM from WDSU. For all your news and weather, watch WDSU News, New Orleans' leader in live, local, late-breaking news. Today at noon and 4 p.m.
We're in for another cold first half of the day, but a warm afternoon with lots of sunshine. Highs into the mid-70s. Expect a cool wind, 10 to 15 miles per hour from the northeast. Tonight is another chilly one as temperatures fall to the 50s and 60s, mid to upper 70s, and sunshine for the weekend. From the WDSU First Warning Weather Center, I'm Raven Richard.
Did you know every 3 seconds someone is a victim of identity theft? LifeLock wants to give you helpful tips to protect your identity this Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Adding multi-factor authentication, like a text with a security code, is one way to boost your security. But for comprehensive protection, trust LifeLock. LifeLock alerts you to suspicious uses of your personal info and steps in to resolve issues that arise, guaranteed or your money back. Protect yourself with a 30-day free trial at lifelock.com. Use promo code NEWS. Terms apply.
Hello, this is State Senator Joe Bowie. On November 5th, we have a historic school board election in our District 2, and I am seeking your support for Dr. Eric Doc Jones. Dr. Jones is a native New Orleanian and the only educator in the District 2 race. He is committed to our children and has the courage to ensure our children and community have a quality public education system. Please join me and vote Dr. Eric Doc Jones, Orleans Parish School Board District 2. He's number 12 on the ballot.
This is Eric Doc Jones, and I approve this message.
Keep up with NOLA Public Schools through Education Elevation. Join Superintendent Dr. Avis Williams monthly as she shares district updates, celebrates schools, scholars, and more. Tune in every fourth Wednesday at 11:30 a.m.
Are you passionate about community safety and police accountability? Tune in to The Monitor's Mic, where we talk about oversight, policing, and you. Hosted by the Office of Independent Police.
Rod St.
The
James
people's
is here,
councilman.
So I'm going to try to do you justice by sitting in your seat today, talking to the phenomenal people from Rod St. James. We are talking to Sharon Levine. Y'all better get her autograph while the getting is good. She's the director and founder of Rod St. James. Mr. Robert Taylor, this man can move. He almost moved me to tears every time he comes. He's the executive director of the Concerned Citizens of St. John. And Kate Lyon, research and policy coordinator. And the chemical of the month just so happens to be lead. And we're talking about how this chemical can get into a person's body and live and then transfer to offspring. And we just recently had a conversation here on WBOK with Gassan Corbin, who is the executive director of Sewage and Water Board. And he too was talking about his concerns with lead. Can you speak to the lead levels here in the city of New Orleans?
Yeah, I sure can. So the Water Collaborative, a group that got founded here a few years ago, they've been doing great stuff around testing water. And they did a study and found that 88% of the homes that they tested here in New Orleans had lead in their water. 88%. Now, they didn't test everywhere. I think in their study they didn't get a lot of people out in the east, so they really were able to say what the levels were there.
Probably even higher.
Probably maybe even
because,
higher.
You know, they like to intentionally neglect certain communities of people, so
Right.
it might be even higher.
It might be even
but
higher.
80, how many?
88%.
88%.
Yeah, most of these levels were, not extraordinarily high, but still, any lead in your water is a bad thing. You don't want any lead in your water.
How do you? I'm literally trying to wrap my head around the fact that we have something that exists that's called Cancer Alley. Like this shouldn't even exist.
That's right.
And if you find it, you should eradicate it as soon as possible because it's impacting the very livelihoods of people,
That's right.
children, pregnant folk, elderly folk. Like, do we not care about the humanity of people? Because as we said earlier, I don't think that this would be a fight that you would have to continue to fight if the demographic of people were different. If the socioeconomic status of those people was different. I don't think that you would have to be at the United Nations talking to people. How does it make sense at the United Nations, but it doesn't make sense to your council
That's
in
right.
St. John Parish?
That's right.
To your governor in the state of Louisiana.
That's right.
How do you go somewhere and people from all over the nation could empathize with your plight, but not your governor?
That's right.
Somebody got to make this make sense to me. Help me out, Miss Sharon. What's going on here? What is this really about? Is this race and class?
This is racism. Let's build the industry in the governor's hometown.
Oh, he wouldn't let you do that.
No, he wouldn't let us do that. No, throw it on the black people, poor black people, because no one would speak up.
Oh, but somebody,
somebody did.
They came knocking at the wrong door because
That's right.
somebody is definitely speaking up. And I
That's
think we need more Sharon Levines, more Robert Taylors talking about all of these issues. And as we were talking off air, we were talking about how we have so many issues in the black community that we are so disorganized because we're fighting so many different fights from so
Yes.
many different fronts. We can't collectively fight for Rod St. James because we're over here in Orleans Parish fighting our own issue. They're over in Jefferson fighting their own issue. And I think that's by design.
But I do think we need to express more about the chemicals because the chemicals affect everyone.
Yes.
And once we started speaking about that, the people need to know and learn what these chemicals do to the body.
The chemicals are no less dangerous than guns in the hands of children who walk into schools and shoot them up.
And
It's all poison.
I'm a victim of lead. I had lead in my body too. But the doctor gave me medication for it. So I don't have it anymore, but I did have it.
Well, listen, I can't express to you how much we appreciate you, Mr. Taylor, Miss Levine. You as well, Kate Lyon. We appreciate you because this is heavy work.
It is.
And I mean heavy in terms of your spirit.
Yes.
Heavy in terms of just like having to get up every day and fight for the livelihoods of other people while you're also suffering under those same conditions.
That's right.
This is extremely heavy work. So we thank you for the work that you're doing. We have a caller on line 1. Good morning, Renee. Welcome to the Good Morning Show.
Good morning. I commend both of you, Mr. Taylor and Miss Levine, for your work. That is a heavy lift. I know personally individuals that live in St. Rose that are fighting something going there, and also in Sorrento. That is a huge fight, and it's an ongoing fight. And I know people that actually work in the petrochemical industry. It's almost like they don't understand how that is not only a detriment to your community, but it extends past New Orleans as well. And we in New Orleans need to really understand that it don't just stop. Chemicals and stuff in the air and the water just don't stop on the border of St. John, St. James Parish. It extends. And I think people here got to really understand how detriment this is to our community. And we really need to, if I can engage more people here to get involved and understand the environmental, but just like you said, Dr. Wyatt, we are fighting so many different fronts. It becomes exhausting. And here I am, over half a century years old, and I'm going to continue to fight till I leave here. But I'm going to educate my family, my friends, anybody I can to understand the importance of this environmental disaster that is plaguing our community.
Thank you so much, Ms. Renee, for your call.
I appreciate y'all work.
Thank you. Have a great weekend. Listen, are there any parting words you want to share with our listening audience before we have to let you go?
Well, I want to share with Renee that thank you so much for wanting to get involved with us. RISE is actually having a meeting at the Welcome Senior Center at 6 p.m. this Monday. You can find more information about that at risestjames.org. We welcome people from all across Louisiana to come and join up with us because you're right. It doesn't stop at the parish line. You know, New Orleans is downwind and downriver from these, and we need people from all over to join up. And thank you for contributing time from your own struggles away to deal with what's happening here in St. James.
And I also would like to add, we need more ministers to join board with us. If the ministers would talk to their congregation, that would be a big help. We have but 2, and that's about it.
Mm-hmm. They can reach us at info@risestjames.org. Info@risestjames.org.
We want to thank our guests for being with us. This is a powerful thing, and I always want to have more time with you. Come back as often as you need to continue to educate our listening audience, because even if there are not a lot of people listening, whoever is listening can then share out the information with other people. So thank you for being here, Ms. Sharon Levine, Director and Founder of Rise St. James, Mr. Robert Taylor, Executive Director of Concerned Citizens of St. John, and Kate Lyon, the Research and Policy Coordinator for Rise St. James. Listen, this issue alone is a cornerstone for why voting is important.
That's right.
Voting matters. Early voting has started. It's October 18th through October 29th. You can vote early in Jefferson Parish at the Joseph Yenny Parish Building, room 502, the Charles Odom Building, 408 Minor Street, Kenner, Louisiana, the Grand Isle Multiplex, the West Bank Regional Library, East Bank Regional Library, Marrero Community Center. In Lafourche Parish, you can go to the Government Complex, Veterans Memorial District, the Lafourche Parish Government Complex. In Orleans Parish, you can vote early at City Hall, the Algiers Courthouse, room 105, voting machine warehouse at 8870 Chef Mentor Highway, Lake Vista Community Center, second floor meeting room, the Treme Community Center. In Plaquemines Parish, you can vote early at the Plaquemines Parish Government Building, Bell Chase Annex, the Reverend Percy M. Griffin Community Center. In St. Bernard, you can vote at the St. Bernard Government Room 104, St. Charles Parish Courthouse 15045 River Road, number 189, in the Allen Arterbury Building. St. James Parish at the courthouse on the second floor, the courthouse annex, or the Lusher Machine Warehouse. And St. John Parish, where this conversation is happening there, you need to get up and get out and vote at the Government Complex on Airline Highway, Egger Courthouse. In St. Tammany Parish, you can vote early at the St. Tammany Parish Justice Center Parking Garage, the Towers Building, or the St. Tammany Administrative Complex Building A. Tangipahoa Hope Parish, you can vote early at the Tangipahoa Parish Register of Voters Office, Tangipahoa Parish Government Building. In Terrebonne Parish, you can vote early at 8026 Main Street, Suite 101. And in Washington Parish, you can vote early at Washington Parish Courthouse, North Shore Technical College. Please get up, get out, and vote. Early voting is today, October 18th through October 29th. We are about 18 days away from Election Day, y'all, November 5th. Please do not wait until Election Day, because we know life be lifing, and something might happen. You have an 11-day window minus those Sundays to get up, get out, and vote. I want to welcome you guys to the front porch. Up next, with Graylin and Kemba. This is WBOK 1230 AM. I am Dr. Ashanta Wyatt, and my co-host this morning is
Senator Wesley Bishop, New Orleans.
Listen, join us tomorrow right here on WBOK 1230 AM.
What New Orleans is talking about.
See ya.
See ya. Enjoy your weekend. Go vote.